Hi, everybody. Welcome to NA Lit Chat. It is Thursday, May 1st, and we are very excited to be here tonight. I am Amy Evans, and tonight we are going to be talking about the category of new adult and how it is growing and changing. We have tons of new adult bestsellers that have hit all the lists over the past few months and really over the past year and a half. And the category has really embraced a whole lot of different things lately. We have so many authors in our community that are writing sweet NA, they're writing spec fic NA, they're writing spooky NA, they're writing sci-fi NA. And lately what we've been hearing from everybody is that they're really excited to explore the age range of the characters and all the possible tension in the storylines and all the things that we always talk about really loving. But they would like to find an audience that is looking for more than what's currently hitting the charts. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And I just want to be very, very clear, and I know I speak for all of us on the NA Lit Chat production team when I tell you that we are not here judging anyone. We all read all the NA that we can get our hands on, as sexy as it wants to be, as sweet as it wants to be, as scary as it wants to be. We all gobble it up. So we are here to be inclusive, and we're here to help everybody find new readers and new books and really just be able to support themselves as an author if that's what they want to do. And we want them to write whatever speaks to them and whatever their characters tell them to. So I would just like to ask everybody to respect that idea tonight. We are all here to help each other. We're all here to listen to each other. You don't have to read everybody's work. And that's how I think we should leave it at the moment. I am really excited to have ST Bende here with me. What's up, ST?
Hey, Amy, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to talk to you about this. I know we've been having lots of conversations.
Yes,
offline.
I've been looking forward to this chat for weeks. I'm so happy it's finally here.
Yes, I can tell you that all the different NA groups that I am in, every time somebody mentions, like, guys, I have a sweet book or I have a sci-fi book, what should I do? I see a lot of different things float by, and one of the ones that kind of disturbs me the most is everybody says, well, you should really sell it as YA because nothing's selling in NA besides, what we already know about. And I don't believe that that's true, but I know that that's what people are concerned with. So we are here, and we have two very special guests with us to help talk about how we can work together as a community and bring the right readers to you, no matter what it is you want to write. I am very excited to introduce Viv Daniels, who she has just released her first NA book. However, she has 4 NA books that pretty much were part of the very first books released under this name for the category. And I will let her tell you about herself and how that happened. Hey, Viv, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amy. As she said, my name is Viv Daniels, and I have one book out, One and Only, which came out in November. The companion novel, Sweet and Wild, is coming out this month. Yay! But I also write under my real name, which is Diana Peterfreund, and I have 4 YA novels and 4, they didn't call it NA because that word didn't exist, books about a girl set in college called the Secret Society Girl series that came out like 8 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, and when I first started hearing NA from the people at St. Martin's, like they kept using sort of my books as an example.
Well, they were the people that coined the term. I mean, they were the first people that I know that did it.
Yeah, and the books are from Random House, but they were out, so they were saying we are looking for stories like that. So, so I was writing YA at the time, and I had a very young child, and I was like, oh, good, they're back, college stories. I'm so excited, and that brings us up to now.
That's very cool. I think that's how a lot of us kind of found this. We wanted to grow beyond what, the age range that we were writing about. And we also have PK Rezo, who you guys know a lot from the Twitter chat, but this is the first time we've had her on the air. Hey, PK, what's up?
PK!
Hi. Great to be here, guys.
So why don't you tell us about your book and how it's a really interesting part of NA because it's a time travel NA book, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I kind of went outside the box and did speculative fiction. It's really more of a futuristic contemporary style. I kind of like to call it Doctor Who meets Juno without the teen pregnancy.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah, it's a time travel, and it's right on the cusp of upper YA, NA. I really wanted to go with NA, but I'm at that point where I'm not sure if it fits in NA. So I know that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and I'm excited to really delve into that.
How old are your characters, PK?
My main character is 18.
Okay.
And the love interest is 19.
Gotcha.
Well, and you're one of the people that we sort of started this conversation with because you and Laura Howard and a few other people I know who all have, sci-fi or fantasy NAs, and you've been, selling them like that for a while, all said, I'm not sure, maybe I should go back to, upper YA. And then Diana, Viv, you pointed out something really interesting in the Facebook group that we were all in, and you were talking about the really popular recent releases that technically should have been NA, but the publishers sold them as upper YA. We were talking about Fangirl and Jenny Lynn. You've worked with publishers before. Why do you think that is?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I think that, we talk a lot about, kind of creating a genre, like creating new adult as a category and then bringing readers in. But I think, we might be going about it a little bit backwards because, book selling is sort of really hard, sort of as it is, and to find readers, new adult right now, readers who are coming to new adult, and publishers who are finally getting on board with it, it's really a very market-driven category. I mean, it didn't exist. Publishers, for years, I would get emails from people who had read my Secret Society Girl series and were like, I have a book set in college and nobody will buy it. Like, how did you sell yours? And I would be like, I don't know, but if you find out, let me know because they won't buy anymore. So, and then self-publishing came around, and there were all of these books that were sort of set in that genre that were great, but didn't find a market in New York, and they did really well, and so New York came knocking. But I think that they're publishing a lot of these books as YAs because they know where to find that market. Like if they're looking at Carew in The Daughter of Smoke and Bone, who's an art student, and she's living on her own in her own apartment. It's very new adult, but they think that they can find that market in the libraries, in the schools, in this sort of hardcover release, the people who read Graceling, for instance, and not necessarily the people who read Beautiful Disaster.
So what then is the cap for upper YA? Is it an 18-year-old that's sort of not that steamy? Like where would you cap that genre category?
I think it's really tough to tell because YA for so long has been really dominated by paranormal books, where even if the characters look like they're 16, they're actually 355.
Right.
And that's definitely the case in, again, The Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I mean, Carew she looks like she's, an 18-year-old girl, but she's not. And Akiva is like 100-something-year-old angel, right? Like, and he's doing his thing as an ageless angel. So it's tough to tell. Like, I think that if you come around and start saying in your text, and this is just from coming from the YA field, if you come around and start saying in your text that your characters are 25, you're gonna get beat down for it. But I think that if you look at Fire by Kristen Kishore, she never comes out and says how old Fire is, and I think that that's a very canny move on her part, because if she comes out and says how old Fire is, the truth is Fire's probably in her 20s, and not actually a teenage girl.
But that's not declared, and that's not particularly relevant to all the details she does give out about the story, so people don't worry about it as much.
Right. I mean, the thing, it's so hard to define something by age group, which is something that YA has started to do, but at the same time, book publishers publish books. Most of the characters in The Song of Ice and Fire are 13 and under. Daenerys is 13 when she gets married, and so she's a teenager, and yet they don't call those YA books because they thought the market would be better in adult fantasy.
Well, and marriage is not a typical YA topic, so that makes sense.
Well, and that's kind of what they're starting to say on Twitter, too. Book Whimsies says that, to her, upper YA can have characters right on that edge of adulthood, but in NA, they've actually taken the first step across the line.
I think that's a good point. We actually haven't done everybody's good news from Twitter, so let's do that for a second. And
And Addison Moore's here. She chimed in. You want to tell?
No, well, yeah. I mean, Addison has been awesome in really trying to make Google work all day, and we really appreciate her efforts. I think that Google Plus and the Hangouts don't like her, so we're going to have a talk with Google. But
Aw.
that's not today's business because we didn't want to stress everybody out more. So thank you so much for trying, Addison.
Hi,
And
Addison.
we're so glad you're here at all. But she's talking about how NA's landscape is still malleable, and she thinks readers are just as excited as writers to see new subgenres emerge, like paranormal and all the other things that we've talked about, and I agree with that. And Addison also gave us our favorite word last week for today's broadcast, and that is sexpectation, and what to expect from new adult.
So
After
Twitter,
we look at the good news, we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Twitter collectively is very hungry. There will be a lot of news about food, but we can start with C. Giovanni Author says that she finalized the In Between Seasons cover, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Carrie Butler adopted a shelter puppy. What? It's kind of relevant, kind of.
It's totally relevant.
L.K. Lewis Author says it's my birthday, 32, holy poop. So good for you, L.K.
Happy birthday.
Let's see. Oh, Cat Girl Studio, Alicia Cat Vansel says her good news is she just finished the cover for Beautiful Stranger, which will be revealed on the 12th, and it looks like she has a sign-up form. So if anyone wants to participate in her cover reveal, just check her at stream. KK Hendon says her good news is that I, please God, should have this manuscript done by the beginning of next week.
Good luck.
Miss Dolly Llama, now we're getting into the food. People are hungry. Miss Dolly Llama just ate 2 cookies. This is either a slow news week or the best news week ever. So props to you. What kind were they? And Sarah Harian says that she has a ceviche and a Pacifico staring her in the face right now.
That's pretty good news. I have some good news, actually, for PK and myself, and we were both nominated for Best Debut at the Utopia Awards, and I got to tell PK, because she didn't know.
Yay!
So that was double fun, for me at least.
Yeah. And you have another nomination, too, right? Sci-fi?
Yeah, it's for Best Supernatural Cover, but I really give that one to Regina Wamba, and, I mean, she just came up, we worked together, but the cover for Clicks is her and her hard work, and if you saw all the things we did to get there, you would really appreciate it that much more.
It's beautiful. I'm so proud of you guys.
Thank you. I think you should sell 1 million copies of the Outskirts series, and then you should have to come to Utopia this year. That's
I really love those new covers. I could just stare at them all day.
They're so beautiful.
Thank you.
They are.
We all know if we get into covers, we will not stop talking about them, because that is the one subject besides Thor and Norse gods that can really derail our chats almost every time.
Sorry.
So, let's go back to sexpectation. And what do you guys think really kicked off New Adult? Like, what are the books that stand out in your mind that really caught on and got everybody gobbling them up? And I will state for the record that I agree with you, Viv. This was absolutely reader and writer driven, and this is a category that made itself. And that is why I believe we can continue to define it. Whether or not the publishers, are going to lead the charge there, they didn't lead the charge in NA either. We did, and they followed along, and I expect them to do the same thing here on out. But what books really got you drawn in again?
For me, it was Cor Carmack and Tamara Weber. I'm pretty sure, I just, that's like 90% of us who can answer it that way. But I had this, I was at home, I had this nursing baby, and I read Easy, and for the first time, I felt like it was a book that I could recommend to my Secret Society girl fans.
Ah, okay. So you knew that you had people that were hungry to read this. And what was the time difference between the Secret Society girls and Cora's release?
Well, I guess, so Secret Society Girls were published in 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009. And so it had been like a couple of years.
Okay, yeah, I think Cora said, we had her on here a few weeks ago, and her book came out in 2012, like in the fall. Do I have that timeline right? I think I did.
Yeah, so it was a while, and my baby was born in late 2010. So it was 2011 that I started seeing these books coming out. I think that's when Beautiful Disaster came out and things like that.
Yes.
But it's interesting because I think those early books weren't necessarily as sexy as the books that you see now.
Well,
oh really?
It depends what you consider, not what you consider sexy, but I think there are some other books that kicked off the trend that were pretty sexy. So, what about you, PK? What drew you in?
Yeah, I mean, I totally think of Court Carmack losing it. That's, the first thing that comes to mind for me. And she was actually, her book hit big. She was actually my CP's agent before her book hit big. And
Right.
then, like, all at the same time. So, yeah, I was kind of following that all along.
Yeah, no, she definitely admitted that she kind of saw, an uptick and had the story and, the right time, and it was definitely, it was she was like, it was a great story, but she was also in a position where she was watching what was happening, and she really was able to really look and see what was coming and be a little bit ahead, and it worked out really well for her. And I think we all can look at, what's happening right now and try to maybe see that. One of the ways that I always do that, and this is an interesting tip that I've shared with other people and they seem to appreciate it, is if you look at the publisher's marketplace and you see what the books are that the publishers are buying, you know that they're not going to be out right away. Although that timeline is certainly shrinking, you can sort of get a sense of what they've bought that they're planning to publish, a year and a half out. And that's a good, if you have a story similar to that in your mind, you might know that there might be a market for it at that time.
Amy, that is so strategic. That never occurred to me.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I saw the end of Chicklet, like the writing on the wall, like long before it happened, because you stopped seeing any books being sold with that.
Wait. Chicklet ended? Because I love Chicklet. I love Chicklet. It's my favorite thing to read.
Well, you just can't pretend. You just can't call it that. That's why I really believe that new adult it started as a thesaurus term for Chicklet, because that was just a bad word to publishers suddenly.
Yeah, it's so interesting though. I mean, I feel like publishers, if there's a limiting factor, I feel it's because I don't feel like it's happening in the realm of authors or in the realm of self-publishing. Like, I think it's happening in the realm of New York publishers seeing new adult very much as a romance-driven movement.
Do you feel, because you have a lot more experience than I do you feel that they'll ever see it beyond that, or do you feel like
all they need to do is have like one big hit and then they'll all want it too. I mean, they're very they want to jump on bandwagons.
So how do we champion the hit that's not the current mold?
You have readers buy it. That's the thing.
Well, I know that, but I would personally love to see more stories. Like, I love Christy Cook's books. I think they're so fantastic, and I'd love more of that paranormal. Like, I think
Christy's selling pretty well, last I heard.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Amazon did recently. I mean, they have divided the category. I know Laura Howard just had a book come out last week, I think it was, and she said today that she was like number 20 on the paranormal NA list, and I was really happy to hear that there was a paranormal NA list.
And on a fantasy NA list too.
Yeah,
when they say paranormal, don't they mean paranormal romance? I mean, it's not like Butterman, like, because that's not like PK's book isn't a romance.
It is though. It's partially. I mean, there's that's a big subplot of the story. I mean, it's not romance based, but it is a huge subplot. So it fits in the NA category, but
it has the paranormal element.
It's not paranormal. So if they had an NA,
like sci-fi,
like that would work. Yeah.
And like the romance parlance, like sci-fi romance falls under paranormal. Like, I don't think of your book.
Does it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, like if they give out a Rita Award for paranormal, like it includes sci-fi romance.
Oh, okay.
I was looking up the definition of paranormal yesterday, actually, because I use it a lot when referring to how I felt about all the people that I met at Utopia. They're just like better than normal, but that's not the actual definition. And the actual definition I love. The actual definition is like anything that doesn't make sense according to science, like anything that you sort of have to believe in your heart. You can't prove it.
Oh, I like that.
Cool.
So that's as it relates to ghosts, or I would say, anything that's yet to be proven in science fiction, or, if you believe that mythology was actually true, but you weren't here when the stories were happening, so how are you really going to prove it, until the archaeological digs come through?
Thor is real, baby.
Of course he is.
I've seen his movie.
You don't really want to get me in on the rant of the fact that if we write it, it's all real, at least in our heads, and that's all that matters.
That was a big question of mine with the Amazon, though, is that if they add those subcategories to NA, will it be easier to find? And are readers are they going to look for them? That's the question. Are they going to look for these subcategories of NA if we can even get them there?
Well, before I came to this chat, I signed on and I looked at the top 100 in like the romance, new adult, and college, and then also in the literature coming of age, which of course, like, you wouldn't think is necessarily being romance. Those lists are almost identical. Like they're practically the same books. It's just lots and lots of clutches, lots and lots of bare-chested dudes.
Right.
Not that
Should it be that way? No, but that's the way it is.
Well, and I think that can be the most productive thing that we can do tonight on this show, and as NA Lit Chat, and with all the other groups that I know, at least we belong to, New Adult Authors Unite on Facebook, and I'm in a few other ones, and we've got EJ and Carrie out there in Twitterland, and they're at the NA Alley blog, and I really think together we have the opportunity to add some definitions, some hashtags, some key words to this category so that we can draw readers in. I'm not looking to make a judgment on anything that anybody's writing. Like, I feel like I can't say that enough because I love it all. But if we can, one of the ones that, keeps coming up, and I had added it to Jelly Bean Kisses really before we even started these conversations, I had my tagline is a sweet new adult romance, because it's called Jelly Bean, whatever. I felt like it sort of needed to be said, and it's not.
It wasn't like lust, Jelly Bean Lust or anything.
Jelly Bean Lust. It's like dinosaur erotica, but
no, that wasn't where I was going with that.
Oh man. Okay, that's almost as good as your comment last week.
I'm not saying it.
Nuh-uh. So, for me at least, I felt like I did need to distinguish that. But I will tell you that after I started talking about that, there was this huge backlash, and I wanted to pull it back and sort of start marketing it as upper YA, both because of my other series that's out, and because I felt like I didn't want to really make it overtly sexual. It doesn't fit the characters, and it doesn't fit the story, even though it is a little bit sexy. But I didn't want to disappoint people, and that's when I started asking around, and I found out that people were actually putting warnings on their books, and these were not like only read if you're 17 or older. These were not adult situations. This was not, graphic sex. This was warning, there are no sex scenes in this book. And I realized we really needed to chat about this. Because
every single time I've sent a copy, because Oscar was briefly published last year with a now defunct small press, you guys know that. And when I would send out reviews then, and when I send them out now, I send out a letter that says, just so you know, I know it says new adult, but it is not what you are probably thinking. And I explain, there's nothing that steamy, and if that's not okay with you, I totally understand. It's like I kind of have to prep people and almost say I'm sorry.
Yeah, I need your list of reviewers, because when I send things out, because I come from this YA field, I feel like I have to warn them and be like...
You do!
And because I got reviews in the last one being like, there's a lot of sex in this book, which surprised me, from Diana. And I'm like, well... That's why I changed my name, guys.
I tried to make that pretty clear with the name change thing.
But you know what I have found is that by preparing people, I haven't to date gotten a review that has complained about it. So I don't know if that's an effective tool or not. Like, you certainly can't tell the whole wide world, but at least from reviewers, I've not had someone say, I'm really disappointed in the lack of sex in this book, which I appreciate.
I would like to find out if there is a way that we can tell the whole wide world, and we can do it in a way that's attractive and not that's putting anybody off. No warnings against what we're writing, and no smackdowns on what anybody else is and what people want to read.
That would be perfect.
Sweet tends to work in romance. Like, people talk about sweet romances.
But not in sci-fi?
Not in sci-fi? Yes, sweet sci-fi is not something you hear about.
Yeah, it doesn't really go.
EJ and I had that conversation earlier this week when we were plotting out the broadcast, and he definitely felt some concern. When I was, oh God, I'm sorry. I really have to turn off the Twitter feed because D.A. Boda is really just attacking in a really funny way. But
I can't watch the Twitter feed. I laugh too hard. Like,
you know what?
Simcoe talking about because there's an MFA in Chicklet, it is officially dead.
Well, I also just can't. It's popping into my computer because Twitter took over something on my Mac, so I apologize for that. But I I think it's up to us. The Amazon categories are hard enough as it is to figure out where to put your book. But if we can start with Sweet NA just to help attract some contemporary romance readers that might be looking for something that goes beyond the known definition at the moment, then I think we can lead them into further genreification with other tags that are sort of, sci-fi NA and spooky NA and spec NA. But I'm not sure what to do beyond sweet to differentiate.
But like when you're saying sweet, you're specifically talking about still like new adult romance, aren't you? Like you're not talking about like, it's a sci-fi epic about like space battles or whatever, and there's no sex. Because I think most sci-fi readers aren't judging a book based on the sex levels, whereas like romance readers sometimes do go looking specifically for sexy books or specifically for sweet books.
That's a really good point.
And I wanted to throw something out real fast while we're talking about this. So there is this may be and that's the thing that had me thinking after Amy and I were discussing this earlier. There may be two different conversations to be had here, because I think there's this fundamental argument that all NA is super sexy, and then there's that divides another thing, is all NA romance. Like I've asked myself that, is there room for anything other than paranormal romance, or these subgenres of romance, as opposed to, and paranormal romance is spec fic. I mean, if you look up the definition of it, it's speculative fiction, but a lot of people treat it as a subgenre of romance. They view it as a subgenre of romance, and that's another question I have: is that a whole another battle that we're going to have to fight? That maybe we will eventually get to where we can have sweet romances, but readers, if it doesn't have a romance as a central theme, they're not going to accept it as a new adult. And that's just something I've thought out loud.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought.
It is a good thought. I feel like it's not about acceptance. I think that where we have to rethink our conversation is that we're not necessarily going after the people that are reading contemporary, steamy NA to start reading non-romance science fiction NA. That's not what's going to happen. What we need to do is find new readers, maybe who read adult sci-fi or who read young adult sci-fi, who don't think that new adult as a category is for them at all, and educate them to the fact that there is some really awesome NA sci-fi out there, and it's really unique to adult versus young adult because of all the things that attracted all of us to the category to begin with.
That's a really interesting point, Amy, but I think my question is do you think that there are that in romance, which is where we're all in agreement that romance is where the new adult genre or the new adult category has definitely taken off.
Yes.
So in romance, they weren't publishing books about kids that age, like people that age. They were not publishing books about kids in college. You read a contemporary romance, and they were in their mid-20s or above. You're right. And then you had YA romances where they were teenagers, and so there was this big black hole of production. Whereas I read science fiction just found on the science fiction shelf, and there's constantly stories about the 20-year-old starship private who's walking around the belly of his giant generation ship and stuff. And so I was are those new adults? Sure. Is Star Wars new adult? Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
But nobody's calling it that because there was never this hole. We didn't need to invent a word for it because it just existed and it was just part of adult.
Mm-hmm. Whoa! Slow down there, Smut Queen. The belly of what?
Okay. It was the belly of the panther.
The generation ship. Is
that what the kids are calling it? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I actually had a serious point.
No. I'm wondering if you're going to be able to draw people in if they're not feeling a lack in their readership already. Books that are not being called that. Why do we need to reinvent the wheel? I guess. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just wondering, what if the motivation is going to go anywhere.
I think the end fear with all this is that if NA continues to be a genre, so if it just continues to be one thing, and that's what readers define it as, publishers as, it'll just go away. The one thing I want to throw out real fast, and I'll quit bugging y'all. Chelsea Kramer tweeted, sex sells, and so far in NA that's been the case, but it won't always be the case. And I do agree with her. I think if we're persistent, that's my general mindset. But that's my mindset towards life. Just work hard and keep doing it, and eventually you'll win people over. But
how long do you think it'll take?
I went to the RWA website today just because I think we all know, if you're familiar with book stats, romance sells. It's like the #1 genre fiction category. It's been that way forever. And I was just curious to know what the real stats would be. But like in 2012, romance fiction generated $1.438 billion in sales. It was the top performing category in bestseller lists in 2012 across New York Times, USA Today, and Publishers Weekly bestseller lists. Romance fiction sales are estimated at $1.35 billion for 2013. As far as the categories go, romance market shares, romance fiction was $1.438 billion in estimated revenue in 2012. The next closest was religious and inspirational at $7.17 million, not billion. So almost double if my math is anywhere close. So the bottom line is anybody who's out to say that, we need to change this from a non-romance specific category or whatever, that's false. Like, all categories are romance specific when it comes to sales. I mean, that's just fiction. Fiction's dominated by romance.
All stories are better with kisses.
Right. It's a huge attraction.
But are they better with jelly bean kisses? That's
Ooh.
Shameless plug.
Like all stories are better with parentheses jelly bean kisses.
I hear what you're saying, Diana, and I agree with that a little bit, and I still wonder if, there's just a new readership that maybe we can draw in because they like reading about the adult category or the NA category as it's defined a little bit differently. Maybe it's sci-fi that takes place at a college campus or something. Stacey Work does that really well, and so does Amy Bartle. They were sort of the first people I knew about that, and they've both been writing paranormal / NA since their books came out.
Here's my other question for PK and ST. Do you guys go to the science fiction conventions? Do you go to the cons? Do you interact with the core science fiction reading audience?
Well, that is the goal. I have not tried to sell books at a con yet. But that is an ultimate goal, yes, once I get my books out. I'm still right now writing, so I only have the one out. I'm trying to get the sequel and then the third. And then, yeah, definitely, I plan to hit as many sci-fi cons as I can. I mean, that's a gold mine right there.
Yeah, because my friend Rory Shea, she put out a new adult, just this week. It's called Elected, and it was originally sold to a publisher, and the publisher folded, and then she sold it to a publisher called Silence in the Library that sort of specializes in going to all of these cons. They were at AwesomeCon in DC last week. They go, they get these tables, and they sell the books there, and I think once you have a publisher and an author who are at these core science fiction things, saying to people, this is new adult science fiction, because science fiction readers love the to get in these little tiny subgenres, just like romance readers do. They have the slipstream and the space opera and the weird and the cyberpunk and whatever.
Right.
I'm sorry,
yeah,
I just
that's a good point.
Rory's feed. Rory and I were actually with the same publisher, so
oh, hey, Rory's here.
Yes,
her cover is sick. I love her cover.
Super awesome to see her doing so well, because a couple months ago we didn't really know what was going on. So this is really, really nice.
Yeah, I got to go to her launch party last weekend.
You did?
Yeah, and
the pictures look great.
Yeah, it was in a bar, and I'm like, oh, this is so different from YA, because you can be in a bar and you can hand out drinks, because she had these awesome drinks that were supposed to be hemlock in the book. It was really
awesome. Well, I know Alicia Kat Vansel, who's one of part of our team here. She does cons all the time. I don't think she's ever bothered with a book fair. And I know S.A. Price and Starla Risen Phoenix, who's always in our audience, Starla Hutchin. She goes to cons a lot too, and they do very, very well there. I know that if you can find the place where you think you fit, I think that sounds like an awesome place to go with some of these subgenres, and that's, I think, the point with all this, right? It's going to find people who want to read them and introduce them to our books instead of trying to convert people that aren't really interested at all.
Yes, how do you make your people instead of someone else's people?
Yeah.
And I think the cons might be, better than trying to shout down the noise of the really hot shirtless rock stars. Not that I don't love hot shirtless rock stars, but there's a plethora of them on Amazon, and their giant guitars drown out everything else.
Right.
Well, it's interesting.
They're
Megan
sexy
Vernon,
guitars.
yeah, right. Megan Vernon is a really frequent member of our chat, and she's been here a lot, and she may buzz in on us tonight. But we've had two really interesting conversations over the past week, and one was her disclosing that as much as she loved writing her Alien series, you know, some of her newer and adult books, or newer new adult books, have made a lot more money in 1 month, like in one market, than the traditional sci-fi YA ones did. And, you know, I think we all have to acknowledge the fact that as writers, we all want to do what we have to do to support ourselves and just to keep moving forward with this as a business and a career. So I, you know, give people credit for wanting to write what sells, especially when they do, like, there's so many interesting stories to tell here. It's not like you're compromising anything to try to find something that readers want to buy.
Right, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the market, because what I've heard from a lot of people that, you know, they wrote these things, they called them new adult, they realized it wasn't hitting what the readers thought of as new adult, and so they've been recategorizing it as Hispanic romance or as science fiction or as something that they think is hitting the readership more squarely.
Right, and that's you know, product reinvention, I think, is always important, and I think that we all do, like, whatever commercial projects we can come up with, because then it does support that random idea that's totally unique that you're going to have to work your tushy off to sell. But if it makes it, it's because it's, you know, you really attracted people, and you just can't do that without having fans or having a backlist or having people that want to pay attention to you or having made enough money to invest in, you know, getting some eyeballs on what you do.
We were talking about that on a group blog I'm on, Indie Ignites, about how, you know, you really have to balance, like, the amount of time you're going to spend on the projects that you know are going to fund your ability to write what you love.
Yeah, what did you guys come up with?
Nothing. We just really want to write what we love.
Well, I think that that's fair enough. I think that, but, you know, I don't know. I had this conversation. We have a new assistant for my husband's photography business, and he is an actual new adult, and I am an older new adult.
Oh, I thought you were saying your husband is, and I'm like, woo!
Good job.
No, but so my husband is a pretty successful commercials photographer, but he takes about 100,000 pictures a year. And I will tell you that no matter what he says about them being commercial versus art, when you do that much work, there is art that comes out of it. And I really learned that lesson from him. And I was trying to talk to this new assistant about it, and he was like, well, I just really want to take those, you know, random art shots that are like somebody's finger that nobody in the world makes money at. And I was like, well, look around my house. Like, some of these pictures are really art, and it really comes out of putting the time in and putting the work in and putting the words on paper. And I really believe that, like, you can write what seems like the most commercial piece of fiction, but when it comes out, it can be better than any literature that's out there. And I think we learned that lesson with young adult for sure, and I know we're going to learn that lesson with new adult too if we all just keep going with it.
Yeah, and that's a thing too. I mean, are we going to stay committed, those of us who have those NA genres that aren't really selling as NA? Are we going to stay committed to calling it NA, or are we going to find something else to call it? So, I mean, if we stay committed to, this is my NA sci-fi, this is my NA time travel, whatever, then yeah, maybe we will make that move.
But I think it kind of depends on how much pushback we end up receiving and how much we're able to really take on before we go, okay, this just isn't working, I can market it somewhere else, and then we give up. And I don't want us to do that. Like, I love this community, and I really hope I get to stay in it because I think it's great. But I can see, you know, it might end up being a better marketing choice to go upper YA if there isn't in a year's time a market for these kind of books.
Sure. I mean, you always got to make the best decision, sure.
Hey, I wanted to take a quick straw poll from Twitter. So we're having a debate on Twitter. Do college kids read? Do they read?
That's a good read.
So I want to see. So I want to see, or for fun, I guess I should say. You're supposed to be reading your textbooks.
Well, that was always the publisher's excuse in the past.
Right, and then Ava J said that basically, that in her experience, like, she thinks that high school kids or college kids are just as likely to read as high school kids. And I was just going to see what you guys thought.
I've heard they binge read. So I think that they don't read a lot during the semester, but then when they go on break, they'll devour like an entire series. I know Sarah Cannon has a pretty long series, and people just like sit down and read all of her books at once.
I I think they read. I think it depends. I think I read pretty consistently, but I don't know if that's normal.
I read
Yeah,
so much like for school that when I was out of school, all I wanted to do was read like magazines and romance novels.
Or chick lit. What happened to
Chick lit, yeah. I read because I was there like during the heyday of chick lit in college because I'm old. But yeah.
Y'all have crushed me.
I think that when I look at the readership, and even when you look at the books, you know, we talk so much about these books being set in college. So many of the ones I've been reading recently they're either only mildly in college, like the character, you know, it's like the 50 Shades of Grey effect. The character is technically a college student, but you never see her in class. You never see her in class. Her partner tends to be an older man, a rock star or a cage fighter or a billionaire, you know, like, and I see these tropes over and over again, and it's different from when I was reading, you know, Losing It, which is so much, like every scene pretty much is set in a classroom, or you read Wait for You, where like the whole first half of the book, they're lab partners, or you read
that is a great book.
Easy, where she's in the class, and that's how she like ends up meeting the hero to start with. And nowadays, I read these books, and like they're almost never in class. One book I read where I was actually really surprised because I was like, oh, look, they're in class. Like, I read A.J. Pine's release, If Only, and, you know, they were, like, she takes a class with the hero, and you can see them arguing about stuff that happens in the class. Like, in my book, which has a very similar title now that I think about it, One and Only, they're lab partners, and you see them in class. But it's not, I think New Adult is, like, so much moving away from that right now.
Right.
I just saw that Chelsea said she was the I can't go to a frat party because I'm reading the Hunger Games kind of girl. and Michael,
love you, Chelsea.
and Michael Simcoe says, of course I read in college. We didn't have smartphones.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't have cell phones in college. I had to like write them into the books and be like, oh, this makes it so much easier to like Facebook stalk your crush because we didn't have Facebook.
Or meet up 5 different people at 5 different parties at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys, Cora Carmack just tweeted in. She said when NA does break out en masse to specific, she's curious to see whether there will be largely trope-driven, like PNR, or trend, like YA books.
What do you guys think about that?
I'm curious too, Cora, and I can't wait to meet you this weekend. I'm so excited.
Oh, you guys are going to have so much fun.
Does she need to bring a taser or pepper spray, or what is this
No,
development?
she was so helpful when I was publishing my book.
She's literally one of the coolest people we've had on this show.
She is. She's so generous with her information, and she's like really proud of herself as well as being really humble, and I love that combination of people. You know, she just loves what she does, and she knows she's lucky, but she's worked her tushy off, and she deserves it all.
Unlike EJ,
so
who's full of
kind.
shit and super
Stop!
Stop
I think it's
called you a hero earlier tonight, so shush.
I think all of publishing is like super, super trend driven. I think that like New Adult has a lot more potential to not be because it sells so well if you self-publish it, like unlike some other genres. So you can do outside the box stuff where you're not going to get your series canceled the way that young adult series get canceled. Not that I'm bitter.
Well, that's what surprised me about Michael Simcoe's comment about there weren't cell phones in college because of course he read. So of course he read because I can honestly, like, I read 99% of what I read on my phone, whether, you know, it's my Kindle on my phone, whether it's, you know, Stories Online or Wattpad or wherever it is that I'm looking, that's where I'm reading. I very rarely pull out my Kindle, and I will occasionally use paperbacks, but it's usually research-based or nonfiction if I'm going to do that. So I feel like people are actually reading more, and that's kind of where new adult stories have grown from. And, you know, people are reading serials more. They're reading things that are short attention span theater that maybe they can finish in a commute or, you know, just in one night. How do you guys, have either one of you approached writing like that? Do you feel like it's specific to new adult, or do you see that as just a trend that exists in other places as well?
I'm fascinated by the idea of serials. I know some people for whom it's worked really well. I've known some people for who it's kind of crashed and burned. I'm I'm like toying with the idea of doing one. I have a friend who's like totally lined up to do covers for me if I decide to do it.
That's
But
right.
I'm just not sure how to make it work. I love writing short stories and novellas. Like I've written several in the science fiction field, so I think that that's a really good length for me. I just haven't actually pulled the trigger on doing it yet.
Well, and novellas are doing really well, and they're really feeding the market, and they're doing a great job of both meeting the needs of Amazon's algorithms and meeting the needs of readers to get a little bit of taste of, the story worlds and the characters they love. But
How do you mean they're feeding the algorithms? Algorithms confuse me.
basically, from what I hear, and I'm not an Amazon expert by any means, but I can tell you that I definitely saw these trends in my own account. Amazon ideally would see a book from you every 89 days. And
Wow.
if you have a book out every 89 days, and that book gets attention, then it improves your algorithms overall, it improves your visibility overall. And they want to see another book out in another 89 days. Now, besides just book sales, they're not really evaluating them for how good they are or how long they are, as far as I can tell, or even what the price point is. They're just evaluating them, as sales and how well they do. So if you have readers that are eager to snap up a 20,000-word novella about your characters, even for 99 cents, that's really going to do a lot for you, and it's
For your
really
whole
going to do a lot.
catalog.
Yeah, it's really going to do a lot for your whole catalog in between your long novels that might take you 6 months to write. So it's a really interesting way to try to sort of meet the commercial side of things as well as meet your readers' wants and needs.
But I see so much
I'm not the expert at
pushback.
all.
I
What?
see so much pushback, like in the reviews, like, oh man, I paid money for this and it didn't finish, or it was only like 50 pages, or whatever, and people get angry, and like, I don't want to make anyone angry.
Well,
Well,
no,
maybe
it's
they're not priced right too. I mean, I think there's a real market for it if they're at the right price.
Well, I can tell you, I put out Jelly Bean Kisses, the prequel, to work, and it's 99 cents, and I'm constantly getting feedback like, I love this, but it's too short. And meanwhile, it says that it's like a prequel. It says that it's just an introduction and vignettes, and I'm still getting that. So, then you're like, well, do you pull it? You're like, what do you do here? Do you leave it up and make it free?
Do you put in the product description? It's a blank word novella.
It says like it's a 40-page novella or something. No, I could change it to
Seriously?
like 12,000 words. I don't know if that would make a difference.
No. I think page or number of words is the same thing. I'm surprised that if it's in the product description that people are surprised at its length.
I think that's a good comment, though, that it's too short. That they're telling you they like it and they want more, so you're directing them to your other work, right? The next
I'm trying to
story.
see it that way, yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about making it financially viable. If you publish a serial, right, 4 100-page installments, and you sell them each for 99 cents because you don't think it's fair to charge more than 99 cents for a book sale. On Kindle, you're going to make, what, $1.40 off of it? Whereas if you put it all together as one 400-page book and charge $3.99 for it,
Right.
you're going to make $2.70 off of it. So that's leaving, I mean, that it's a different way to do it, and is it going to be is it going to make it financially worth your while?
Well, and I think you really have to think that out because, I don't want to go into too much personal stuff here, but I think it really depends on how long you want your series to be. Because somebody like Rachel Higginson, who's got her Love and Decay series, it's in seasons, it's multiple seasons. I think she's like episode 12 or something. So over the long term, if you, and EJ I think is doing this, and you can chime in too, you're sort of bundling, you're releasing 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe you're bundling that package at $2.99 instead of, $5 for each individual or something like that. So in the long run, it can work out if you can price it correctly, but there's definitely that idea that if you're selling one book at $2.99 or up, obviously you're making a lot more than a lot of books at 99 cents.
But it can also... Oh, go ahead, EJ.
Oh, I was just going to say, most of the authors I've talked to that are writing serials, even the ones that are really successful at it, they don't make tons of money off of it, because a lot of them are 99 cents each. They usually price, if it's a long serial, like series, more than 3 or 4 stories. Several of them are usually free. They do bundle them a bunch of different ways, so there's definitely potential, revenue from a bunch of them. the thing that I think is the reason why people are doing it is it generates readers. I mean, because
Yeah.
readers really, it's a really quick way for a reader to get into your stuff.
Right.
And for a new author like me, it was strategy just because I didn't have a back catalog, and I didn't, it would take me. I'm not a fast writer like some of these folks, and I can't crank out, 3 novels a year or whatever, and so it would have taken me forever.
3? That's slow in like the brave new world of publishing.
I know it. Like, and I'm it's going to cripple me, but it just is what it is. I just write at the pace I write at, I guess. But so it was strategy. Like I can publish the serials quicker than I can a regular novel, and I'm not cutting corners on them by any means, but it still doesn't take me as much time to publish them as it would a real novel, a full novel.
And it's marketing. I mean, it's just another smart way to market your work, your other work that you might make more money with.
Right. It's smart if it works for you.
So how then do we market these non-mold outside of the how do we market the NA books that we have that are outside of the current NA mold is the question of the day.
Right. I'm listening.
I think it's a trial and error thing. I mean, I know writers who tried calling it new adult and are now trying to call it something different and see, how their sales can go. I mean, the nice thing about sort of the new wave of publishing and digital publishing and even self-publishing is you can go in, you can say, you know what, this is the way we're going to categorize it. You know what, that back cover copy wasn't working for me, so I'm going to write a back cover copy that emphasizes these elements instead. Like, you know what, I don't want a couple on my cover, I want like an element on my cover. You know what, no, I want a dude with his shirt off on my cover. No, I don't. And you can change it and try again, and the book is still there. It's not like you have one choice. I mean, I have the same outdated covers on my Secret Society Girl books that were outdated in 2006, and it looks like prep, and the book wasn't like prep, and I still have those covers on the books, and it's been 8 years.
But if they were
mine to control,
we just lost you.
Or if I could have gotten, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diana?
Like if they were mine to control, or if I could convince because I know some people who've convinced their publisher to like change their covers. I have not had that luck, but if you can do that, like I would go back now and put covers that I think better fit into the new adult mold on those books if I had the chance now.
Well,
yeah,
then
Instagramming look.
Right.
I've broached the topic with them. I mean, they can't do it to the printed book covers, but I don't really sell a lot in print right now anyway because the books, they're old, so they're not necessarily on the shelves. Like I sell more digitally now, and I think if I could get new digital covers on them, that would be great. But I have not encouraged them to do that. I mean, I haven't succeeded in getting them to do that yet.
KK Hendon posted a really great blog post about book covers. It's sort of like no more white, people kissing or
oh my god,
making
that
out
was
on covers
such
or
a
whatever.
funny one.
It was a beautiful post. It was really funny. But I think it does pose an interesting sort of problem that we have, especially for self-published authors, is there is a point to where do you, and it goes back to what Megan's doing, like, what she mentioned about, writing more of the sexy stuff because that's what sells, that's what pays the bills.
Well, what I was going to say from Megan about the second conversation that we had this week was she was at the Cleveland Author event, which she said was phenomenal, and they did a great job. But she also said that all of a sudden there was some reaction to how many really, steamy books were there, and her YA books really kind of flew off the shelf, and she was surprised because, like everything else, there's a bit of a pendulum.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and what I was just going to mention about that is, as a self-published author with your titles, with your covers, where do you draw that line? I mean, I know, like, for me, I'm very passionate about, like, expanding new adult. Like, I want it to be bigger than what it is. Like, and I don't want it to stop. Like, I don't want it to just be, college erotica, and eventually it just slides back into the erotica table or whatever. But I'm coming out with a contemporary NA this summer, and I'm very aware of what the cover components need to be for the successful contemporary NA titles, and those involve people on the covers. And so it's really tricky. It's a really hard thing. I mean, I think for a long time writers were used to publishers making those calls, and so we could just throw up our hands and say, it's not my fault. It is what it is.
Right.
Now you're letting the artists that are creating these things who have a little bit of, we're all passionate about what we make and things like that. We're having to make those tough calls, I think.
Well, and then when you start genre splitting, it gets even harder. You know, if you're doing a paranormal romance, like you have to have kind of symbols and elements and something that says this is not the contemporary romance, but then you still need the people.
Yeah, I'm not one of those that thinks that, covers are definitely a work of art, but I think covers are an advertisement. And if you're not, if you look at, if they talk about like food products, right? Like green on the food product means fat-free. And people are just trained to see that. You know, there's a big issue in YA that like photos say YA and then drawings, like drawings of people, say middle grade.
Or chicklet.
Or chicklet.
Right.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
This is great. We've got a little bit of last-minute advice from some of our friends in Twitter. And Chelsea Cameron says, sex sells, and so far in NA that's been the case, but it won't always be the case. And, Rory Shea Wrights would like to talk about S.T. Benday's Elsker books and how they're going to be the books that make everybody appreciate how NA can expand. And I agree with that.
Guys are so sweet.
And Addison Moore's, extra advice is know your NA readers and know your NA characters and stay true to both. You want to make them both happy, and I agree with that. Any last words of advice, PK and Diana and ST and EJ? Diana, you need initials because everybody else has them.
I know. I feel like
I'm going to influence the panel here, and I'm just going to issue my word of advice to PK and ST, who I've heard grumblings from about listing their books as upper YA. YA, don't do it. Don't do it. Stick to your guns. Keep it in a.
For you, EJ, I will stick to my guns.
I'll beg you to keep labeling as NA because I really think that's going to solve this problem. Is it's just more authors insisting. Yeah. Over and over and just being insistent about it and saying, I don't care what you think it is, it's NA, it's new adult. Yeah. That's what I'm calling it. I made it. That's what it is.
I keep calling it NA.
What about you, PK?
No, I keep calling it NA. I mean, I wrote it because of NA, because of my years as an NA, as a new adult. I mean, that was what was just thrilling me about writing it, is just remembering those years and, that was the spirit of it. So it is NA, and I want it to be NA. But I don't know if it's not marketing as NA. I have to consider all these things. So, but absolutely. Yeah, I'll still call it NA. And thanks for having me here, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, we're so excited to meet you, PK. I'm really sorry about all the times we said your last name wrong. Rezo.
For the record, I already asked PK this week to be on another one. She was already scheduled before tonight. So there we go. You'll get to hear her again soon. Diana, thank you so much. When I saw everything you had to say in the New Adult Authors Unite group, I just knew that we had to talk to you here.
No, you don't. I hang on for when you post. I get so excited and I read everything you have to say because you have so much experience in so many of these fields. So thank you for sharing that.
The thing is, at no point do I ever want to tell somebody not to write what they want to write. I just want everyone to be open to the idea that writing what you love is not the same thing as marketing it, and sometimes you have to be so much more cynical when you market something. You have to turn off all of your passion and love, and then try to cast the widest net you can.
You guys, I've been waiting all night for Amy to sing One Direction at Diana.
What? Why?
Because they have a new song called Diana, and I'm waiting for this.
But I don't like it.
Now it's only been the Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana, which that's a whole other thing.
It's a super cute song, and I know Amy knows all the words, and I want to hear it.
I'm not singing. I'll play it for you, but I'm not singing. I'll probably get in trouble on radio.
I'm gonna go look it up as soon as we're done here.
I won't make
super cute.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to all of your contributions. Thank you, Diana and PK and ST and EJ. And next week, we are just going to be on Twitter, and we are going to be talking about how we can actually work together and make up some hashtags and share them and spread them and just draw readers in based on all the conversations we've had tonight. So we hope that we will see you there and read your tweets. And I guess the biggest word of advice that I have for everybody is just support each other. If you know people who like NA and you know people who like science fiction, make sure they're finding the people that are writing NA science fiction. And if you know people who really, are a little put off by too much of the heavy stuff in books, make sure you steer them to something that doesn't have it. Get to know what everybody's writing, get to know what people want to read, and match them up.
NA Chicklet.
Yeah. So I guess that's it for warm hugs and for
Running high fives.
running high fives, which I always trip on. But thank you for listening. Thank you for tweeting, and we will see you guys and hear you guys next week, and we'll see you on Twitter in between. Good night, everybody.
Good night, y'all.